Justin DeRazio at Sports Radio 94 WIP. My guest today is the reigning and defending New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Champion, El Phantasmo. How are you today, my friend?
I'm great, brother. I'm doing a little bit warmer than you. I'm currently in Canada, in Vancouver on the West Coast. I'm just looking outside. It's beautiful and about 12 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit in American, but it's definitely a lot warmer than you guys right now.
I can't even do the math for that in my head. I'm not sure what the conversion is. Did you guys get any snow recently? We just got 2 feet last week, and then we got the 9 inches this week.
Yeah, I wish I could show you, but it's clear blue skies. I mean, it's not warm. It's still Canada, but we have no snow, which is nice.
Well, I'm a little jealous of that. For our viewing audience, I kind of want to get a grasp of who you are, right? So the first thing I want to ask you is, how'd you get the name El Phantasmo? Where does that come from?
Well, it's not a cool story. I was going through my iTunes playlists to try and find something that stood out. One of my original wrestling names that I wanted to be called was Spitfire from The Prodigy. And I thought, that's not very cool. And then I was scrolling down and I saw El Phantasmo and the Chicken Run Blastorama, which is a White Zombie song.
Okay.
And then I did a little bit of research and I didn't see that there was any El Phantasmo luchadors in the world. And when I first got started, when I was 18, I looked like a pimply-faced teenager and I wanted to wear a luchador mask, and that kind of fit the bill really well.
So you started off wearing a luchador mask. You don't wrestle in the luchador mask still, right?
No. I took that off about 15 years ago.
Okay.
I just never changed the name, which I probably should have done 15 years ago, but we're stuck with it now. But I kind of like the ELP. It's got a good ring to it. Still got the old school El Phantasmo, but the ELP works good. Gets the chance going a lot easier than El Phantasmo does.
And so, like, your style. So I imagine you wrestle mostly a luchador style.
It's definitely a little high flying, high paced. I like a little high risk, little Rob Van Dam style. Doing jumps over the guardrail and doing rope walk backflips and having fun like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess, like, who are some of the guys you modeled your game after? Like some people you looked up to when you were growing up, or some guys that are still wrestling maybe that you continue to model your game after. Like, who are your inspirations in the ring?
Yeah, so when I first started watching wrestling was like WWF in the 90s. And obviously growing up, I was a Bret Hart guy, just as Canadian. He represented Canada. And then as I started to understand wrestling a bit more, it's very controversial to say, but I think Shawn Michaels I gravitated towards a little bit more, just because when you think of a Bret Hart match, you think of a Bret Hart match. But when you think of a Shawn Michaels match, you don't actually think of one kind of match because he's so good at wrestling so many different opponents. He can wrestle The Undertaker in that kind of match, and then he can wrestle, Triple H in a different style match, and then he can wrestle the little guys, and he's very versatile, which is something that I really liked. And then when I fully became a huge wrestling fan was when ECW came on, and it was on Friday nights on TNN in Canada, and Super Crazy and Tajiri were doing things I've never seen before, and then Rob Van Dam was doing crazy stuff, and Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn, those famous matches where they did those incredible sequences were like, holy shit, this is what I want to do. And then from there, I didn't even realize independent wrestling was a thing,
Yeah. Well, have you gotten the chance to wrestle at the ECW arena?
I did. We did a New Japan versus TNA show or something, or a multiverse or something like that. We did a Bullet Club versus the World, or I couldn't even tell you who was in that match. I think it was 10 men. Josh Alexander was there, PCO, me, Juice, Jay. It was a blur, but it was awesome to be there. And it's a lot different than what I thought it would look like,
Mm-hmm. Like inside?
I guess because it's been renovated so many times. Or
exactly that. And also, they shoved, back when ECW was in there, they shoved people in there. It was packed. And the way they would...
Yeah, which is, I love that. I love that chaos and just cramming people, and then you get that atmosphere where I guess now it's a little more safety and
Exactly.
rules and all that kind of stuff. But it was still incredible just to even kind of like walk around the block. I think I like that more than being inside. Well, I was like, oh, here we're in the mecca of Philly, of ECW and all this stuff, and that was very cool to be there.
It's the only place.
I wish I could have done like a hardcore match and not had to have like a little silly 10-man tag or whatever, but it was still very cool just to even be backstage and seeing the walls, and they have that like big ECW graffiti thing there, and Tommy Dreamer was there. He's awesome to talk to, and yeah, I mean that would have been my dream, was to do ECW shows in front of that hot crowd, that style of wrestling, that little bit of chaos. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your career's still young. You have plenty of time to get back to the ECW arena.
Oh, I mean, we're definitely going back, but it's very nice of you to say, but I'm in my 20th year of wrestling right now. I've been doing this for a hot minute. Yeah. 2005 was my first match. So
who was your first match against? Do you remember?
I do. It was a battle royal that we didn't get paid for.
Wow.
That's how wrestling used to work back in Canada. But yeah, it was I had a very cool training class because it was me, it was Kyle O'Reilly, who's been in NXT and AEW, and then the Bollywood Boys, who was in WWE, and then Nicole Matthews, who used to do a lot of Shimmer and the Mae Young Classic and stuff. So we all trained together, and we all have very different styles, but it was all very fun growing up, coming up together and seeing how far everyone got in wrestling. It's very rare, I think, for a class.
So a 20-year career in wrestling. Somehow you've made it all the way to Japan in that time. Tell me about your journey in New Japan.
Well, I got into New Japan kind of just being at the right place at the right time. To make a long career short, to make it in Canadian wrestling, you have to leave Canadian wrestling. Okay. And to leave Canadian wrestling, you got to go to the States where wrestling happens. You got to go to the East Coast. And in about 2011, I tried to go and like do the Ring of Honor stuff, and I got caught at the border and got the flag, and that kind of went up in the air. And it wasn't until 2017 that I moved to England to wrestle over in the Indies, because that's when British wrestling was really hot. And because I was Canadian, I could get a visa to go to England. So literally it was my only option if I wanted to try anything in wrestling. And through going to England, I got into Rev Pro, which is one of like the top independents still in the world right now, but back then it was too. And they had the ties with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and scratched and clawed to get booked at Rev Pro. And they did a Global Wars, Rev Pro, New Japan kind of like collaboration show. And they did 2 of them on a weekend, and I got booked on one show. And, I kind of did the rope walk moonsault, did a couple flips, got the crowd chanting for this random guy from Canada. And it was at that time Kushida was leaving New Japan, and they needed a new junior heavyweight. And I kind of fit the bill perfectly with that ties to Rev Pro. And I'm very blessed because Rev Pro also gave me the opportunity to wrestle Cody Rhodes right before AEW was getting started. So I did that, and he's also like, hey, we got this new thing starting called AEW, and we want you to join AEW. And I was like, oh, shit, well, New Japan kind of asked first. I really don't know like what to do here. And then it's like a funny story that I had Cody's number on WhatsApp just because I was in England, so I didn't have like a normal phone number. And then he just didn't check his phone for a couple of weeks. And during that couple of weeks, New Japan got on the ball and got me the visa. And they're like, you're in Bullet Club and you're flying to Japan in however many days. So that's how that got started. So very, very lucky with a lot of things. And that's how life works for a lot of things, right? It's the right place at the right time and the right moment. And that's how the universe works.
That's really, really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that before. Well, not that everything happens for a reason, just the entire story about like the New Japan getting on the ball a little faster than Cody Rhodes. That's funny. He should have.
It is funny.
Yeah.
It is funny. I've brought it up, and like Tony Khan was backstage at a Rev Pro show when I wrestled MJF. And then he's like, "Yo, LP, like, what's going on? Like, I thought, what's the deal?" And I was like, "I've been waiting for Cody to respond for weeks. I don't know." And he's like, "Oh, let me call him right now." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And Tony Khan calls Cody Rhodes in front of the boys in the locker room. He's like, "What's going on? What's going on with the LP?" And I was like, "I messaged you on WhatsApp. I was like, you haven't responded in a few weeks." And Cody's like, "Oh, I don't check WhatsApp," because he has the American texting, you know. And it was just one of those things that's just how it worked out, and there was no hard feelings either way. It is fun to imagine a different universe of if I did go to AEW and not New Japan, what would have happened, and But I'm very happy that I went to New Japan, because New Japan Pro Wrestling is the best professional wrestling on the planet, and that's why we're here. We're here to talk about New Japan.
Absolutely. And speaking of New Japan, let's talk about your match this Friday at New Beginnings in Trenton versus Konosuke Takeshita. People listening obviously might know Takeshita from AEW. Recently, Takeshita was dethroned as the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Now he's coming after your title, but this isn't your first run-in with Takeshita. Give me a little bit of the history between you two.
Yeah, we got a long history in a short period of time. I think it was 2 years ago at the G1 Climax, which is like the biggest wrestling tournament in the world, which is what every wrestler always talks about, is competing in the G1. That's where the best matches are every night for 4 weeks, and the hottest place in the world in Japan in the summer times. But we had a match in Corkin Hall, and we just had instant chemistry, and it was awesome. And I got the 5 stars, and people were going crazy. And then from that, of course, the company wants you to wrestle more and try and capitalize on that. And it's never quite reached that same highs, because it's always been in very random places. We wrestled in Corkin, in a sold out Corkin, and the next time we had to wrestle was in like the country town in Japan. And then we did another G1 in the country town of Japan, where it just doesn't have that same magic and chemistry. But I think this time is going to be great, because it's going to be a big crowd in America who is going to be excited to see that style of wrestling, because he hits hard. I can hit hard back, not quite as hard, but I'm a little faster and a little more agile than him. So we have a good dynamic. And I don't know if anybody listening watched that Forbidden Door pay-per-view, but we kind of had our whole story start by, we had that blue thunder off the apron through the tables, and the tables just magically exploded. I don't know how it happened, but people say it's one of the best, or the most satisfying table breaks. Man, I disagree, because it hurt a lot, and then I had to fly from New York to Vancouver with a broken back. But he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, as being the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion proves. I don't know necessarily what he's thinking, trying to come after my title, which isn't necessarily the highest ranked title in New Japan, but I'm not going to complain wrestling him. Maybe he's also a little distracted with Moxley and that Continental title. He lost the one title, now he wants every other title. I don't know really what he's thinking. But I know we got 15 minutes in Trenton, and those people are going to be in for a treat. A treat and a show. Both. They're a treat show. Both of them, whatever. The show is going to be a treat.
I can't wait. It'll be the first New Japan show I've ever attended. I'm pumped. But you mentioned that table spot. You said how bad it hurt. I'm curious now, what's the most painful spot you've ever taken? You probably heard or answered this question a million times before, but for us, what do you think is the most painful spot you've ever painful?
I'm just going to go completely out of left field, because I was just talking about it with some friends in Vancouver that I used to wrestle with 20 years ago. It's not actually a move that hurt me the most, but I was wrestling like a really fat guy, and I used to do a lot of comedy wrestling. Yeah. So we were chasing each other around the ring. And then I remember I picked up a weapon and started chasing him, but he was so slow that I needed to slow myself down somehow. So I did a cartwheel on the floor, and it's like a concrete floor.
Yeah.
But then for whatever reason, I just decided to do a forward roll on the concrete floor. And my hip bones just smashed the concrete so bad it's the normal just somersault that you do in the ring a million times, but I decided to do it on the concrete. And I don't think my hip bones have ever been the same. Like, I feel like I must have chipped one of the back of my hip bones just doing a stupid roll because he was so fat and slow that I needed to do something to slow down. And that, I still feel that like 20 years later, which is crazy. And I mean, I've flipped off cages. I've been dropped headfirst on ladders. You know, it's the same kind of pain when you get hit in the back with a chair, you know? Like, you think that hurts just because it hits you in the back, but the chairs have like the two metal poles on the edges. And it's when that metal pole like hits you in like the elbow or like the back of the hip. Like, it's not the flat part that hurts. That's awesome. Or it's not awesome, but like that doesn't hurt as bad. Sounds like the surface area. It's the little pole, like the little metal legs that just like get you like right in like the little pieces. And that's what hurts. So my God, that's what hurts.
Was the fat guy you were wrestling, was that Butterbean?
No, it was Moondog Manson, actually.
Moondog Manson.
Basically looked exactly the same, but with a ponytail instead of bald.
Bald.
Yeah.
What's one match of yours, if someone who's not watching has never seen any of your matches, what's one match you recommend they watch before this pay-per-view on Friday?
That's I mean, I would go out of the way and watch the first Takeshita match. Mm-hmm. Just because that shows you like what New Japan is all about. But I think for one of the most like crowd pleasing matches would be the first Forbidden Door, where it was me and the Young Bucks versus Sting, Darby Allin, and Shingo Takagi. Because back in another lifetime, I used to be a very bad guy. It's just a real big dickhead, you know. I modeled myself off the Young Bucks and the Bullet Club, and fans always wanted to see that. And lo and behold, we've got to team up for the first time, and we had such a great chemistry together. And then, you know, that was the first time they got to wrestle Sting and Darby. That was the first time I got to wrestle Sting and Darby. You know, I got to give Sting the purple nurple.
Yes. A
big old double titty twisters, and then he wanted to give it back to me, and he gave me the double purple nurple titty twisters, and then you got the high flying Young Bucks, and Darby's doing crazy stuff, and Shingo Takagi's doing his New Japan style match. I think it's just one of the most fun matches that has a little bit of everything, and that's what I kind of love about pro wrestling, right? It has a little bit of everything. It's not just one thing. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you throw it all into a big bowl, and that bowl fizzes and creates this magic, and that's what's so special about live pro wrestling.
I think New Japan is it kind of excels in that, right? Of like hitting every different aspect of professional wrestling. You get a little bit of the comedy wrestling, you get strong style, you get high flyers, you get technical stuff, you get a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah, you definitely do. And I just think the way that New Japan presents professional wrestling is very unique and very cool. Like, we try and like the way in like Japan, it's like everything's so like strict and organized and follows times and rules, and the show starts with the same music, and they have the bell and the Japanese ring introductions, and the show kind of like builds the whole show as a match. You know, it starts slower and works its way up to the main event, where sometimes in America maybe the first match goes crazy and has blood and stuff, and it's kind of like a up and down wave, where New Japan just has a nice steady build all the way. By the time you get to the main event, everyone is ready for the main event, and the crowd's electric, and the wrestlers are ready to deliver a main event. And it's the whole like the red and blue and like the sports aspect of it, where you do get a little bit of comedy wrestling. It does make it a little more fun, you know. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to describe to like an American wrestling fan how New Japan is different, because it's pro wrestling is the same thing around the world, right? But, you know, like Lucha Libre is presented a little differently in Arena Mexico than, you know, what a WrestleMania or a Forbidden Door, or the way it's presented in England, or, you know, or Japan. It all has its own very little like style. And I think it's very cool how Japan does it. And I'm excited for everyone in Trenton to experience it for the first time, like you, my friend. Because there is nothing quite like New Japan Pro Wrestling Live.
I'm pumped. Yesterday I was speaking with Fred Rosser, and he was telling me about his intent to declare for the G1 this year. I'm interested from your perspective of someone who's been in the G1, competed in the G1. What's that like, wrestling so much so quickly in like a tournament style for, like you said, the biggest tournament in all of professional wrestling?
It's the time of the year that the wrestlers look forward to the most. You know, like we have Wrestle Kingdom, which is our WrestleMania, which everyone looks forward to, but that's like one show for one day, and maybe you get 8 minutes for your match. Where the G1, you can have up to 30 minutes every night, and it's everyone trying to have the best match every night. It is one of those the rules kind of get thrown out the window where the first match maybe will try and go better than the main event, and then that everyone's trying to one up each other the entire time. But the craziest thing about these tournaments is like for you who like watches at home, you're just watching it from home every day. You don't think about the travel and the hotel that goes into it for us as wrestlers, because sometimes you do a show and then you have to drive 2 hours to a hotel, sleep in a little Japanese business hotel, and then you got to drive 4 hours the next day to do the next show. And it's like 4 days in a row of just like show, travel, show, travel, show, travel. Sometimes you got to fly up to Sapporo. Sometimes you got to take the train to Osaka. Like, it's a grind. And that is like, I wish they almost like documented the travel with the G1.
Wow.
Because the matches are amazing, but like the actual, like how far, like we go up and down Japan and back in that time, and you're having the best matches and you're having the biggest crowds, but you're also not sleeping, and you almost don't have time to wash your spandex. You know, that's something you don't think about, but when you wrestle 4 days in a row, like when can you wash your stuff and hang it? Like you have to keep going and get on the bus, and it's crazy. And I mean, New Japan's been doing this since 1972, so they have a system. They've got it all figured out. It's all planned out. It's so smooth, but it is so difficult that you're like, I wish people could almost like have like the backstage like documentary kind of thing of like us going between all the shows, and all the stuff that happens behind the scenes is almost more interesting than what happens in the ring.
The WWE Unreal of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Not the character breaking kind of stuff, but just like how the travel works, and like, you know, the good guys have a bus and the bad guys have a bus, and you're not allowed at the same hotel, and you're not allowed to go for the same stops like on the road.
Wow. I never wow. Yeah.
Yeah. See, those are these things that you don't think about, but you're like, you have to, but then sometimes you're on a bus with like the guy that you're feuding with, even though you're both good guys. And then there is like a weird, like you have to sit at the front of the bus, on the back of the bus, and you know, you can't interact like during lunch and stuff. And, you know, they take us to different hotels, and it's very, it's so different over there in Japan, but
now it
makes it cool.
Is that more because of like the tradition of Japan, or is that just to keep the kayfabe alive? That's for the tradition.
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah. You know, I mean, everyone in Japan knows what pro wrestling really is. Sure. But they go with it because that's what it's for. You know, you go to a magic show to see magic. Exactly. You know, you don't, I mean, you can think about how it happens, but that's would defeat the point to like sit there and just not enjoy the show. You know, you go to a concert to see your band that you like play the songs that you like that they play. You know, you don't want to think about why they're not playing other songs or why they played this song and not this song. You know, you go to pro wrestling to get caught up in the magic and the excitement and the energy that only happens at a pro wrestling show. That it's hard to describe for someone who's never been to pro wrestling. Like you've been to a pro wrestling show before, right?
Yeah, I've been to hundreds of pro wrestling shows. I've
right, but and then
regular the ECW arena.
Yeah, and then when you're there, there's this energy in the air and the atmosphere and the electricity. It's very hard to describe to someone who's never been, but you just have to go. But when you come to New Japan on Friday, I want you to just like think about like how the show like progresses as a show, and then when the main event's you're that much more amped up. It's very awesome.
It's so funny you say that, because like right before, when I reached out to New Japan a couple of weeks ago to set all these interviews up, I was looking at the match card, and it struck me how it's already set. Whereas like I go on the New Japan site and I can see what the first match of the night will be, the second, third, fourth, and then all the way up to the main event. Where for like WrestleMania, for example, it's kind of a guessing game of what the order is going to be, even as the show is on.
You never know, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's why exactly this is why like everyone likes doing like the predictions. Like we have New Japan Cup, when we go back and it's like the bracket is filled out, the match order is filled out, like all beforehand. Same with the G1. All the matches through the entire G1's posted at the same time, and you can see the entire schedule throughout the entire tournament before the first match even starts.
And it just emphasizes the sports aspect of it.
The sports aspect of it, and that's where it's two guys fighting, and that's the sport, and one guy wins and one guy loses, and that's how New Japan presents itself. And that's pretty much where AEW came from. That's where the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny and Hangman and all those guys were in New Japan. They're like, what if we took New Japan and brought it to America?
Yeah.
And I'm so happy it exists, because it is the best wrestling in the world. No offense to anybody who likes WWE or anything like that, but it's not my cup of tea anymore, and it's almost hard to watch. I tried watching the Royal Rumble just because it was on Netflix at my buddy's house, and it was hard, man.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
We don't want to try and sit here and bash anything, but you're like, I'm not a big hip hop guy or whatever, but I don't have to listen to hip hop. I like heavy metal and dubstep, and hip hop heads don't need to listen to heavy metal and dubstep. And just like we don't need to watch WWE because it's not what we like.
Well, there is one WWE star I do want to ask you about before we head out of here, and it's AJ Styles. Obviously, AJ Styles.
I knew that was coming.
Not a true, like, he's in my heart not a WWE guy. He's more of a TNA and New Japan guy. Well, what is AJ Styles? Has he meant anything to you in particular throughout your career, or has he? I don't know. How do you view AJ Styles in the end of his career?
Yeah, he's arguably one of the best wrestlers of all time. Top three. I mean, the longevity that his career has had is incredible. And, he's almost kind of like Shawn Michaels, where he can have a good match with anybody. But he's definitely one of the best wrestlers of the world. I mean, his stuff in New Japan is like untouchable. The fact that he was in WCW, like that's so far long ago, and you look at him now, you're like, God damn, that guy still looks good. Like, that is a guy who's like built differently, who I can only compare to someone like Will Ospreay, who I've wrestled. I've never got to wrestle AJ. I've met him in Japan, but I never got to wrestle him. But when you wrestle Will Ospreay, it would be like playing basketball against Michael Jordan, or playing hockey against Wayne Gretzky or something. You're like, we're doing the same thing, but you're just a freak human that is so good at this, makes you feel bad. And I think that's what AJ Styles is like, where anyone who wrestles him, you're like, my God, this guy is really good at this. And you don't know why, you don't know how, but he just is.
Do you think he's really retired? Do you think his career's like he's done?
In WWE, yes. As a wrestling fan myself, I can really only hope that maybe he shows up somewhere else for a 1 or 2 off. I don't think he's going to come back to New Japan or anything like that, but as a wrestling fan, I would love to see him show up in AEW for a big match or two. But I don't know. I've never talked to him about that. I don't know. As a wrestling fan, you can only hope that he does go on a Ric Flair style fake retirement and just goes on for another 5 years, but I don't know. I definitely think he's done in WWE, and he gets his Hall of Fame, and that guy deserves a break, you know?
Mm-hmm. I got one more question for you
Yeah.
before we wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long, but one other legend that recently retired that you had the chance to wrestle on his way out, Tanahashi. I'm curious to know what Tanahashi meant to you or to your reign as the television champion.
I mean, so yeah, I got to have his last Ryogoku match, which was like one of the big famous sumo arenas, one of the best venues in the world. It's just like big, giant 2-story dome that he's had so many legendary matches. We got to wrestle there together. And then he chose me to be his last tag team partner, which, I mean, was a huge honor. And I was more than happy to be his cheerleader for that final tour. And, you know, every show we were just, the amount of love that the people like showed him was crazy, but also so like deserved, because that guy never left New Japan. Mm-hmm. He's a big reason why New Japan is as big as it is right now. And he never like turned heel in his entire career, which was like 25 years. He was 25 years as a good guy, which is literally almost impossible to do. It's so hard to make a room like you, but that guy is legit one of the nicest, sweetest people that you will meet. That it does make sense when you meet him. He's just such like a joy. He's never tired. He's always smiling, always happy to see everyone, wants everyone happy. And I think that translates to the ring. But then also, he's also another freak athlete that can do high level matches for 20 years. And, you know, we're almost kind of glad that he called it when he did, because some guys go on too long and then it gets to be a little sad, you know, where he ended, like his last match with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom was one of the best matches I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And that was his last match. And you're just like, what the hell, man? That's unbelievable. I am a little sad that he cut his hair though, because he is one of the most handsome men of all time. But I haven't seen what it looks like in real life. But yeah, man, just what an honor it was that he chose me to be his last tag partner, and we got to have those matches together, and his final Ryogoku match against each other for the first time, and he was so happy with it. And yeah, now he's the president of New Japan. Who knows what's going to happen next? I feel really happy knowing that a wrestler who loves wrestling and loves New Japan as much as him is now in charge of New Japan. Mm-hmm. You know, where I think New Japan has had its problems with owners who aren't necessarily wrestling fans, or they're more businessmen. So now that we have the best wrestler in New Japan's history leading New Japan Pro Wrestling, can only mean good things. I think, and for me, because I was his last tag team partner.
Awesome.
So he loves me.
That's an incredible note to end on. The bright future ahead of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And for any fans who want to get to the New Japan Pro Wrestling show this Friday in Trenton, tickets are available at Ticketmaster and at the Cure Insurance Arena box office. The pay-per-view is available on the New Japan streaming service, NewJapanProWrestlingWorld.com. For $19.99, no subscription is required to purchase the event. I will see you there on Friday, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be flying in on Thursday if the snow clears. There's definitely going to be no snow around the Cure Insurance Arena, because the crowd is going to be hot for 3 hours, start to finish. The wrestling's going to be hotter. The hot dogs are going to be hot dogging. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm pumped for Friday, and good luck.
Thanks, man. See you there.